Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
It's set in rural Wales. He is an odd bod. In the wrong hands, it could have easily slipped into. As a Welshman, I see it a lot. The eccentric Welsh thing, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's just likeable. And it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't punch down.
Yeah, I mean, it's just generally kind of odd all the way through. And I think if you can deal with that, then you're on for just a pleasant viewing.
In its own way, it feels like you're watching 3 episodes of a BBC4 TV show in its way, because its sensibilities is so close to the comedy of British TV of the last, sort of 15 years.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by Will.
Hi there.
Russ.
Hi, how you doing?
And Helen.
Hello.
And also Brian and Charles. No, that's the film we're going to be talking about. Sorry. Thank you as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for editing this podcast and all the episodes of Flixwatcher podcast. Please remember to head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. And also, if you're on Pocket Cast, you can do the same thing as well. And if you want to join the conversation with us or follow us on social media, we are on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod or Instagram at FlixWatcher, Blue Sky at FlixWatcher, TikTok, also FlixWatcher, Threads, yeah, also FlixWatcher. Basically, type in FlixWatcher into Google and you'll find us.
Hello, film fans. Welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Our guests today are Russell and Will. Over to you, please, Russell, to tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
I am Russell. I am a podcaster. I run a podcast called Not Just for Kids, and another one called There Can Only Be One, which is a movie madness podcast where people come and vote on a bunch of different films to find one of the best subject. And I co-run quizzes twice a month at the Port Mahone in Oxford, film quizzes. So yeah, lots of things.
I've not listened to There Can Only Be One, but is that an allusion to Highlander?
It is. It's a misquoting of Highlander.
What's the proper quote?
I think it's There Can Only Be One.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. So I think it's a misquote, but yeah.
Before I say this, is Highlander one of your favourite films?
No, I just like the name. Okay. Highlander's great fun.
We have had it on here, and I think myself and Helen hadn't ever seen it. And I think it's probably one of those films that's best if you see it when you're a kid the first time, or younger. Maybe, sure, just the 80s when things were simpler.
Absolutely.
Will, who are you?
Hi there, I'm Will. I'm a chef, but an occasional podcaster. I don't have a podcast of my own, but I've appeared on Russell's a lot. Yeah, I've just guested on a lot of podcasts and a film fan in general. Yeah.
Guested on this one before as well. Previous guest on Flixwatcher podcast.
Yes, I was on for Alpha Papa last time.
So if you're intrigued about that one and you've not listened to it, we're not going to give you any spoilers on what we think of it.
But basically, you can scroll down the feed and find out what we discussed in that session. But we're here today to talk about Brian and Charles. I sense a theme with British comedies here, Will. But let's go into that. So why did you choose it, first of all? And then you have 60 seconds in which to give us the synopsis.
Yeah, I chose it because, as you said, I'm a big fan of British comedy, hence Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa last time. Brian Gittins or David Earl, a star. It was a short film that he made. It was a sleeper hit. Just a big fan of British comedy. So yeah, it was when it was released, it was on my radar straight away.
Did you watch it in the cinema?
I did, yeah.
Nice. Okay, you have 60 seconds to give us a synopsis, starting from... Your time has started.
Brian is a loner living in rural Wales. He spends his days as a handyman and his spare time inventing contraptions that really work. One day he comes across a mannequin head. Inspiration strikes and he decides, with an aid of, and among other things, a washing machine, to make a robot. It's not long before to Brian's shock and joy, the robot is alive and naming himself Charles Petrescu.
Splendid. So you've seen this before. Helen, Russ, what about yourselves? Is this the first time watch for you guys? Had you seen it before? Had you heard of it before?
I saw this around whichever year it came out, I think 2022. I saw it at the end of the year as kind of like a catch up on films that come out. So I'd seen this once before and yeah, I was happy to go back to it.
It's on quite a few kind of critics lists. It was one that you might have missed type film. What about yourself, Helen?
So I remember it being advertised and out, but not going to see it. I'm not quite sure why. But then when it came onto streaming, I decided to watch it again, thinking it would probably be my cup of tea.
And was it?
Yeah. Should point out, like, if you've seen the trailer for this, it's not a documentary, just to kind of flag. It does kind of like have a slightly odd style, which people may misinterpret as being a documentary about rural life in Wales. Like, Wales is quirky, but like it's not a documentary. Just a flag.
But it is a mockumentary setup, though, isn't it? He was always speaking to the camera, right?
Yeah, it sort of is. But then it kind of like stops being like that a little bit and kind of turns more into like a normal film. It's an unusual film. It's fair to say that.
I think, well, when you start it off, it's a mockumentary about this guy, Brian, who's ostensibly a loner, potentially a loser, certainly a bit left field in the way he does things and integrates with people in the fact he doesn't. So it was, I mean, I think when I saw the trailer, the reason I didn't see it was because I kind of thought it just looks a bit weird. And that's the kind of general vibe all the way through. There's just like an edge of oddness all the way through. Like his balaclava, which isn't a balaclava, which is almost like a pointless hat, really.
They're very in fashion at the moment, knitted hoods. So like he was ahead of the fashion curve.
So is that actually a thing?
Yeah, like it's like a fashion thing that's popular at the moment.
From Brian and Charles?
Yeah. Just took a while to get from rural Wales into the catwalk.
I can't imagine the catwalk wearing them. Yeah, I mean, it's just generally kind of odd all the way through. And I think if you can deal with that, then you're on for just a pleasant viewing. And you can already kind of know what's going to happen all the way through. It's almost like Frankenstein's monster. People around aren't going to be happy with this robot that he's created. It's Short Circuit. It's all these kind of films where wacky inventor brings something to life. People around it don't like it, and then ultimately people do. The evil people don't like it, but then the good people don't really care and protect the local inventor. I guess that's what I thought it was going to be from the trailer, and it kind of was. Unless I missed anything.
Yeah, no. So the mockumentary element is from the short film. So the short film sticks much more to the mockumentary, and I think, as you said, it starts off like that. So the beginning is basically the short film, but the expansion of it then is where the mockumentary thing. It's almost like they went, we can't do that. But yeah, it's a strange film, but a lot of that comes from David Earl. So David Earl, who plays Brian Gittins, is a comedy character. Like you might have seen it. He plays the same character or similar in a lot of Ricky Gervais stuff. Yeah,
in Afterlife.
A much cruder version of that character. So it is a strange one because Brian Gittins is a comedy character, but they've just transferred it to rural Wales.
Are you a fan of David Gittins in Ricky Gervais's stuff?
I am. I like David Gittins. I'm not the biggest fan of Ricky Gervais and Afterlife, but I think the Brian Gittins stuff is... Brian Gittins as a character is funny. I've seen him do other things. He does a podcast in character with another character, Angelos Epithemio. I don't know if you remember him from Shooting Stars and whatnot. But yeah, he does a podcast with him. So Brian Gittins as a character and David Earl in general he's funny. So, but yeah, he's fine in Afterlife, although I'm not a massive fan of Ricky Gervais.
Understandable.
Yeah, Afterlife. I watched all of Afterlife because I kind of got into a vibe with it.
With Ricky Gervais, he is a good writer, and he's a good writer because The Office is great. But the more things are Ricky Gervais, they're not as great. So I think the David Earl stuff, the David Gates, I know a lot of is improvised, and I think that character is the best thing in it, because, not that I'm saying it's got nothing to do with Ricky Gervais, but it's less Ricky Gervais.
Russ is laughing here.
No, I don't disagree. Also, I think another thing with The Office, like Stephen Merchant being there, kind of, I think Stephen Merchant brings a different flavour into things as well. I really gelled with Brian and Charles. I thought it was a very sweet film. It reminded me of, there's a TV show called The Detectorists, it's about like metal detectors, and it's by Mackenzie Cook, another Ricky Gervais link there, because he's from The Office, but it's his thing. And so it's just, I think what I like about these two things, they're not critical of their lead weirdos. They're kind of like, almost have a love for like Brian in this. There's like a real fondness to him as a character, especially when Charles perks up, and Charles is like this like really strange creation, but probably the most adorable robot this side of Wall-E. Like he's got a fabulous voice. He's a really strange character, and like at times he like dances with excitement, and he has all these strange dreams, like turn to, is it Honolulu he wants to go to and dance, and it's just all these like strange things being flung at you. But because the film is constantly on that wavelength and never like pulls back and mocks Brian or Charles, it kind of, I went with it each time I've watched it.
I think that's quite interesting as well. Because it's written by David Earl and his writer partner. It's set in rural Wales. He is an odd bod. In the wrong hands, it could have easily slipped into, as a Welshman, I see it a lot, the eccentric Welsh thing, but it doesn't. It's just likable. And it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't punch down.
Is the eccentric Welsh bod a trope, is it?
Well, yeah, it can be. We're all, we live in rural, we live in rural, but it can be a bit of a trope, and there is a bit of eye rolling when you go, ugh, we don't all live in farmhouses. But yeah, but it could have easily slipped into that kind of thing in the wrong hands. It doesn't punch down, whereas, again, certain people that Brian Gittins and David Earl have worked with do tend to punch down, and this doesn't, which is nice.
Is that Ricky Gervais you're insinuating there?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to be a huge fan of Ricky Gervais. Like I say, but I just think his stuff now is, exactly that, just punching down a bit, whereas this doesn't, it's not, these are all eccentric characters, and they're odd and they're strange, but it embraces the strangeness and the oddness rather than mocks it.
I mean, no one in the village had any problem with it, apart from, obviously, evil guy and the evil kids, I guess. But no one was fussed that he was there. Just kind of realised he's harmless guy doing his own thing. Sure, have fun with it.
Yeah, enjoying his cabbage. Like, one of my favourite lines is when he says, "My tummy has a washing machine." It's really funny. And when he says his name as well, he gets really excited.
What, Brian Petrescu? Sorry, Charles Petrescu.
Charles.
Yeah. What's the story behind the actual, I guess, the voice and everyone, the mannerisms behind Charles? Do we know who's inside the washing machine? Or what?
I think I'll have to check. I'm pretty sure it's the other writer.
Right.
Possibly, because he's got a writing partner for this who hasn't done much else. I think he's
Chris
done
Hayward is the partner.
I know Chris Hayward has done a bit of writing for other sitcoms, but to my shame, I don't know who is inside Charles. I don't want to know. It's Charles.
It's a real person.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's a real robot. I mean,
because he did go to the Charles Petrescu did go to the premiere as Charles Petrescu.
Really?
Yes, the full watch in a tuxedo. So yeah, he's real.
I was thinking at some points, some of the things he did look quite difficult, just like literally, like standing on the pink step, which he then fell off. I just thought that's definitely going to, that could have hurt someone, if not himself, the person inside it. But the mannerisms were, like when he dressed up in the Hawaiian skirt as he was trying to run off to Honolulu, just purely, it was just super endearing. It was like, let him go to Honolulu. Why not? See how far I can get. And trying to dip his toe into the water in the lake for the first time.
What harm could it do?
Yeah.
He's just a man made out of a washing machine. Surely there's no danger there.
But there's never any question of that as well, because the actual design of Charles is ridiculous. Nothing else makes sense apart from that wash machine. No one, there's no idea what else is made out of. We don't need to know. But the actual design is again, it fits the eccentricity of the whole thing. It's bonkers.
I like the way there was like one red glove and like one green, like completely different. As if that's how much it was cobbled together. They couldn't find a matching pair of like hands to put together. Is there anything else, guys, you want to say before we head to the scores?
One thing I will say is that I quite like that this film, watching it a second time, covers Brian's loneliness early on. It kind of takes the time to focus on the fact that he is probably massively depressed, and it's not like, it's not a conversational point, but it is just there early on that he is depressed. And then there is this whole like tension in the film of Charles wants to go out and explore the world and Brian just wants a friend. And so they have that conflict, and it's a low level conflict. This is not a conflict heavy film. It's just, I find that quite endearing that there is this conversation about depression rumbling on that isn't the main conversation. You can focus in on it or not, and it's just there, and it feels more pronounced watching it a second time because I've kind of got used to the quirks of this film, kind of being able to see that there is a slight conversation going on early on that might be dropped by the end when we get into, I guess, what you could loosely call action sequences. But yeah.
So do you think Brian let Charles go once he had established that relationship somewhat with Hazel?
And he gets a friend who is in human form and might be more. But yeah, I think Brian's motivations is friendship, is finding some sort of companionship. And then Charles's motivations is that he's brought into this world and he sees the world can be big and expansive and exciting and he wants to go off. And yeah, he gets to go off at the end, which is sweet and endearing.
Almost like Poor Things.
Yeah, it is. It's quite it's Poor Things
sex.
Yes.
Yeah. Less nudity.
They call it aggressive jumping. What is it in Poor Things? They call it.
I can't remember.
Call it something. I can't remember what they call it. Something, and it's like
It was something jumping. Yeah. Happy jumping.
Happy jumping. Let's go. Happy jumping. And there's a weird double bill.
I did ask in the show notes, in the onboarding notes, I guess there's a better turn of phrase for that, but inventors in films, I don't think we've seen many for a while. I'm sure like in the 80s it was like...
Yeah.
It was a big thing.
There was like a glut in the 80s. There was Gremlins.
Scissorhands.
Yeah. Thingy's done in
the
Gremlins.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Of course, Rick Moranis, yes.
Yeah, Rick Moranis, he was inventor. And then you had... There was a lot of kids films
all kinds of
Robert,
time machines and everything, wasn't it?
And
space machines and
Flubber, Robin Williams, he was an inventor. The German Clump, an inventor in that professor. So there's a trouble with the eccentric inventor.
Like the pre-internet days where anything was possible to imagine you could build it with a bit of wiring and a circuit board, and then the internet came and they were like, oh. Turns like you probably couldn't.
My Instagram feed has started showing me lots and lots of clips from Tomorrow's World.
Ah, Tomorrow's World. There's a throwback.
Yeah. And now you watch some of these clips, like it showed like the first time they talked about the internet, and you're like, oh, that's so quaint. What you thought was going to happen.
We've been showing our eldest old videos from like when we first had the internet. So like the Weevil and Bob stuff.
What's Weevil and Bob?
It's a song called Badger, 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 Badger,
yes,
etc.
It's
the kids love it now, and I loved it when I was young. And is it Fenton, the dog chasing deers? And it's
in Richmond Park.
Going back and being like when the internet was nice and it was just silly videos like that. It feels wholesome. But yeah, there is like, bring up Doc Brown. There's a Doc Brown quality to Brian. Like he has that kind of, he's sort of a low budget Welsh Doc Brown, and his invention's not a time machine but a robot.
Fair play.
He also has some other wacky inventions. The egg belt was one. And
he has like the helicopter biplane thing that just burst into flames early on. It's a great moment. And all of his inventions are slightly, well,
dangerous.
Not slightly, very kind of naff and not very good. But again, it's that kind of like, again, we don't really have those inventors that like watching Gremlins again a couple of weeks ago. There's that inventor there as well. They all make bad inventions that are kind of like trying to fix a problem that we've now fixed, and so they feel quaint. And there's a bit of that to Brian and Charles. He's fixing problems that aren't really there with stuff that's very complicated and doesn't need to be the way it is.
Let's head to the scores.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
You guys, everything at Abercrombie is 25% off right now. I seriously can't remember the last time they had a sale this good. And if you're like me, your cart is about to turn into a massive haul. Use code SPOTIFYAF for an extra 15% off through March 31st, 2025. Valid in US and Canada. Excludes clearance and gift cards. See details online. 25% off everything is valid in US and Canada through March 31st, 2025. Excludes clearance and gift cards. Online price reflects discount.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
I'm Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have included fellow Stripped Media family members Martin and Sam from Song by Song, and Kobe from Flixwatcher, and Dave from The Wire Stripped. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
So welcome to Flixwatcher scores. They are always out of 5 and you can have decimal places if you wish. And we'll start with you, please, Will, with your recommendability.
I would go a 3.7 because of its eccentric and it's not for everyone, but I would tell people to give it a go. 3.7.
Russ?
Maybe 3.5. Let's go 3.5. I agree with Will. It's like you have to get past you got to get used to Brian and Charles. And I think if you're not that kind of person, there'd be people I wouldn't recommend this to. But yeah, 3.5.
Helen?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3.7 as well. I think for some people, this will be too weird or a bit kind of twee in its sort of humour that it's going for. But like if you like that kind of slightly eccentric English humour, if you've seen the poster and you think, yeah, I'm going to give that a go, and you're happy with mockumentary style kind of films, then go for it.
I'm going to join in 3.7, and I think that's mainly because I think the reason I was potentially like against it in a way when it first started, when I first heard about it, was because of David Gittins and his character in Afterlife, where he's quite abrasive and not that nice a guy. So I was like, oh, I'm going to watch a whole film about this guy. And it's the same guy, but like toned down in a way. So had I seen this first, I think it would have been much more endeared towards him. So I'm trying to not have that initial thoughts of an Afterlife character cloud my judgment here. So I'm going to go on the higher side, 3.7. Repeat viewing score. Will.
For me, I think it's a solid 4 because there's so many gags in there that you pick up, and like you say, there's little bits you pick up on each time. So yeah, a solid 4 for me.
Russ.
I'll go 3.8. I got some more stuff in this rewatch, but I think that there's probably a limited number of rewatches for me for this. I think at some point I don't need to see this again, but on a second view, there is more to this film than just the quirky concept.
Helen.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3 just because I haven't rewatched it for this. I've seen it fairly recently, but I wouldn't be adverse to watching it again. And it is only 90 minutes as well. So I think that's obviously...
It's in its favour.
A good plus for that.
Yeah, let's give it a 3 again. I'm not sure when I'll rewatch it, but it'll be a few years probably. Small screen score. Will, you're the only person... Sorry, Russ, did you see this in the cinema?
No, I've only seen the big screen. No, small screen.
So you're the only person to have seen it on the big screen then, Will. So your thoughts?
It doesn't need to be seen in the cinema. You know, it's quite a cozy little small screen watch. So, I mean, it's a 4 again because you don't have to watch it on the big screen. There's no set pieces or anything. It's a Sunday afternoon watch.
Russ.
Yeah, I'll go slightly higher, like 4.2, because I think this much more, in its own way, feels like you're watching 3 episodes of a like BBC 4 TV show in its way, because its sensibilities is so close to the comedy of British TV of the last like sort of 15 years. So yeah, I'll just say 4.2. 4.2.
4.2. Helen.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything like cinematic about it, but I think having seen recently kind of a couple of comedies in a fairly busy cinema, it is quite funny watching comedy in a group, especially a group of people who you might not know and may have different kind of touch points for what they find funny and how funny they find it is quite an amusing experience. But yeah, so for that, I'm going to give it 4, I think. I think when I watched it, I was like, you know what, I probably should have made the effort to go and see it and kind of give it a bit of a boost, because if you don't go and see it, then it makes it harder for these kind of films to be made. So I was a bit sad. I was like, you should just like gone and seen it.
I'm going to give it a 4 as well, because I think exactly the same as Helen. We've got the same scores at the moment. Let's see how that changes with the engagement.
This never happens.
Just because I think I would have enjoyed it more in the cinema. I think this isn't necessarily laugh out loud funny. I think there's a lot of tittering going on. Well, I think there are some big laugh out louds, but not that many that you kind of overpower yourself, whatever that means. But I think this is one that you definitely benefit from other people laughing at other things which you may not have picked up on, because I think there's just lots and lots of little bits here and there. Engagement score. Will.
For me, it's probably like a 3.8 because it depends on what you want from it. I like British comedy. It's silly, it's odd, so I'd engage it. But I think, like other people have said, if you just flicked it on and didn't really vibe with it, then the chances are you're going to give up if it's not your thing. But for me, a 3.8.
Russ.
I'll go for a 3. Like, I'm engaged in as I watch it, but I definitely think I'd be distracted watching this and pausing it. And if I came to it like halfway through on the TV, I probably wouldn't keep with it. There are certain films that if I find them on TV and that they're at any point, I will just watch them from that point. Whereas this, I feel it's more that you start it and then if you make it all the way through, fabulous. But it's definitely
I could all the way through.
Well, it's like I could easily pause this because it is also quite an episodic film. Like it feels like you could pause at any point and you can like come back to it in a week's time.
Helen.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. I think 90 minutes is probably the maximum time that you can kind of give to this. But yeah, I was entertained. I kind of wanted to find out what was like, how was he going to overcome the bully and would Charles get to live his dream? And you need to watch, obviously, the credits to see Charles on his little adventures and everything. So yeah, I think it's good runtime.
You saw the credits? Netflix didn't just like remove the screen from and start playing the next one?
No. Watch this trailer you didn't want to watch.
The only reason I'm dithering is because I'm going to go for exactly the same as Helen. It's going to be 4. Yeah, I think you need to be into it to watch it. But I also echo what Russ is saying, that you can kind of easily get to a point and think, pause, and then go away, and it could be next week or 2 weeks later, and then you just kind of pick up again from where you left off, which is an interesting proposition for a film. I wondered if it would be better as like a short run, like TV series. And one of those ones like Philomena Kunk, where it's like 20-minute segments where you don't feel, where there's almost like there's too much if you have half an hour. So like 6 20-minute segments rather than even half hour. Half hour's too long. That sounds harsh, but there are those like
our attention spans are so bad now that we're going, oh, half an hour of a comedy sketch, too much.
No, but like, have you guys seen I think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 15 minutes. And I'm like, I can't do any more.
Yeah.
For 15 minutes, I'm like, this is perfect, but I just can't deal with any more mayhem or nonsense than that. And I think that's that kind of thing here.
It's a shame Quibi died.
Yeah, well,
because Quibi was 7 minutes, and so that seems perfect for this.
Yeah. And that gives us an overall score 3.71250. Decent. Okay, so we did have a couple of tweets for this. So if you are listening, do follow us on Twitter. We are at FlixWatcherPod, and we are on all the other social media platforms as at FlixWatcher. And look out for a tweet saying something similar to, we're reviewing Brian and Charles with Russ Loves Movies and at Will Chich. Have you seen it? Tell us your thoughts and a score out of 5 stars for an on-air shout-out on Flixwatcher. And we had a couple of comments. Guys, Will, do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, this one is from the podcast Nobody Asked For. It's Short Circuit in the Valleys and one of the sweetest and most endearing films I've ever seen. It makes me almost unnecessarily happy. The full 5 stars and people need to watch it.
Yes, I think people should watch it. Russ?
I've got Lee Thomas, who says it's lovely, daft British comedy that is criminally underseen, funny, moving, and it's only 91 mins, so 4 stars from them.
Perfect.
Very nice.
Well, Russ, can you tell us where we can find you guys online, and we'll say goodbye to all the listeners?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter occasionally, but mainly Instagram and Blue Sky at Will Chich.
You can find me on various places. I don't really post on Twitter anymore, but I don't really post in many places right now. But I'm Russ Loves Movies, and my podcast is Not Just for Kids.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure to speak to you again. You guys have been on before. Scroll down the list, look for Alpha Papa and the one that we all can't remember that Russ chose.
Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Jackie Brown and Alpha Papa if you want to hear Russ and Will talking about other films on this here podcast. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.